That's 5 seconds. Okay. Well, good morning. I am Mark Straley. Today is the 29th of October, 2024. I'm with the Nebraska Vietnam Veterans Memorial Foundation's Share Your Story project. Bellevue University is a sponsor of the Nebraska Vietnam Veteran Memorial Foundation Memorial Park project. And I'm currently in Juanita, Nebraska at American Legion Post 304, where we are interviewing veteran Tom Cameron, who's agreed to share his story for the Library of Congress Veteran History Project and the Nebraska Vietnam Veteran Memorial Park Project. So Tom, I'd like to begin with your name. If you would give us your name and spell your last name, please.
Tom Cameron, Cameron.
And where were you born, sir?
Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Okay. And can you tell me about your parents? What were their occupations?
My dad was a clearman in the Air Force, and my mom was in the Air Force, I'm assuming, and they were married. I'm not sure what they were married. I was born June 26, 1949.
Outstanding. So we know they both served in the military. Was he a career man or mom career, or?
He was, but not my mom. Yeah.
Okay. Where did you go to early schooling?
Well, I'm going to tell you something else. My parents, they were both alcoholics.
Okay.
And we went to the Philippines, Okinawa, Wake Island when I was pretty young. Spent a lot of time in typhoons over there. And I can remember Christmas Day. I'm maybe 4 or 5 years old. My mom was on the floor and she's getting beaten by my dad. Mm-hmm. And she got up and she threw a knife at them. So they did not get along. Mm-hmm. Not good at all.
So that made for a challenging environment that you're starting out with.
It was.
Yeah.
So I was the only child they had. Yeah. Yeah.
So as an only child with parents with their difficulties, mm-hmm. What does that do for you as you're making your way towards high school? Did you become very independent?
Yeah. We left, at that point in time, we were at Lockwood Air Force Base in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. We left on a train, came up to Colorado Springs. I must have been about 6 or 7 years, 8, something like that. And we rode on a train up to Colorado Springs. And then we moved on to Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And we found an apartment over there.
So your roots really weren't roots. You were a rolling stone. You were a wild seed.
I was, yeah.
And being an Air Force brat, did that give you something to be proud of, or was that challenging because of the home environment?
Well, I just thought about the service. I joined I'll tell you later, I joined the Army in 1966, but I'll tell you about that story.
Okay.
Anyway, and then I attended Maury Junior High in Denver, Colorado. Mm-hmm. It was an unfriendly school. I saw a man be killed at dinner time there in Maury. Then moved on to Arvada.
Arvada, Colorado.
Yes, it was.
Is that where you did high school?
Yes, it was, yeah. And, excuse me, I served in the first cafeteria, washing pats, didn't bother me a bit. So anyway, I joined the Army in July 21st, 1966, and then went on to Fort Bliss, Texas.
Now you say you joined the Army, so you weren't drafted. You made a decision
I did. Yes,
to
I did.
join.
Yes, I did.
And why did you choose the Army?
Well, because anyway, when I was 17 years old, I had myself a 1956 Ford. Mm-hmm. I was downtown Denver, and I was speeding, and the patrolman caught me, and I put me in one of these old trucks. A lot of junkers are in there, and other people in there. I went right to jail, mm-hmm. and that had quite an input on me. I don't want to do something like that. So anyway, so then after that, I was on being in jail. I had to go back to do something. I had to do something about that, so I joined the Army. Mm-hmm.
So were you given an ultimatum, or did you decide to change your
I
life?
decided to get it done then, sir.
And that's a good decision, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to
It
talk
was
about
pretty
that at the
difficult
end of the
17
interview.
years old, but I learned something about that.
Good on you. What did your parents feel about you signing up for military service?
I never saw my dad. Last time I saw him, I was 7 years old. I
Okay.
don't remember anything about him.
Okay.
And I saw my mom, but she's an alcoholic, and every time I come home, there's one or two men with him the rest of my life. And I do not like something like that. Not a bit at all.
So you pretty much took care of yourself,
did.
independent person.
Yeah.
Outstanding, outstanding. So you lined up. You decided it was time to join the Army. Your initial training was at,
Fort Bliss, Texas.
and can you tell me about intake into service and travel to Fort Bliss?
Well, I was 17 years old, and I think there might have been 20 people with me, and I was the youngest people, and I was in charge. I said, well, that doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. So we were on a train from Denver, Colorado to Fort Bliss, Texas.
So you entered through Denver, and they put you in charge of others. Do you think maybe that's because you were a person that had independent projection?
I don't know what it was for, but it was not good management for me. Not for me at all. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And when you got to Fort Bliss, Texas, you offloaded, began basic training. Tell us a little bit about basic training.
We were there for 8 weeks, and we went through all kinds of different things.
Were there any specific people you remember from your initial training?
not
No
really.
specific instructor made a specific impression?
No, not really.
Okay.
No. We were just pretty busy. Yeah. Yeah.
And how was the regimentation and discipline? Was that something that you responded well to, or was that something that you had to struggle with a bit to adapt to?
Well, I remember one night, it was not me, but somebody else was drunk, and he did something wrong in the restroom. I'm not sure even what it was, but everybody had to come outside in the middle of the night and put everything outside with us out of the barracks. And we spent detention for a long, long time. And he was not in favor of, I mean, that people were not in favor of him doing something like that to us. So, yeah.
So was there some peer?
Oh, I'm sure there was. I'm
Peer
not part of that, but
encouragement?
that did happen.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. While you were there, there's an ongoing war happening. Were you given any training specific to that ongoing conflict, or did you feel like all of your training was just generic?
Oh, no. When we had running our rifle in the middle of the night, we're talking about Vietnam. Went to the middle of the night with some foxholes and everything, learning firing our rifles. And the bullets were live, so you can get hit and it hurt you right now. You would just die like that. So that was kind of scary.
Did you do your advanced training at Fort Bliss, or did you do your advanced training elsewhere?
I went to AIT in Fort Ord, California, and I was a wireman.
And can you describe what a wireman is and does?
Well, you got some poles, wire, go for communication with walkie-talkies and all that. So, and I did all that kind of stuff, and just odds and ends. Yeah.
I'm sorry, where was that at?
Pardon?
Where did you do that?
Fort Ord, California.
Fort Ord.
Okay. And how long did that training take?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. Okay. So you've got a skill now. The Army's qualified you to be something. And in its infinite wisdom, the Army sends you along to Schweinfurt, Germany.
Yeah.
And tell us what happened, how you got there, you know, the means of travel, all that.
Well, after I was done with my AIT, I went back home to Denver, or excuse me, Arvada. And again, I worked at First Cafeteria, and I stopped that night to get in line, get myself some dinner and supper. And I was the only person in line. And I saw this lovely young lady at the end of the line, and she had my attention quite, you know. Anyway, We had 2 dates. And then I said, well, I have to go on to Schweinfurt from then on. I says, if I write you, will you write me back? She said she would. So, and then we've been married for 57 years.
57 years off a spot in her. That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So anyway, I went on to Schweinfurt. I got there about the last week of December, 1966. And the next day, we went out to Schweinfurt. The barracks were not on the base, and we took this another vehicle out to the battery, and that was 30 miles west of East Germany and 100 miles from Czechoslovakia. It's right up in that corner. So,
Now, you mentioned the battery. Was that a field artillery battery?
Hawk battery.
Hawk battery,
missiles.
anti-aircraft missiles.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So the importance of that, were you doing wireman work at that time then?
I was, yeah.
And that was the support communications network for
Yes, sir.
the Hawk missile, not just the battery, but many batteries.
Yeah. Well, just that one battery for me.
Just that battery?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we spent a lot of time going to the field from time to time, so.
And your duties as a wireman did not directly entail serving as a rifleman, but you were tangentially trained as a rifleman. You
Oh,
had to
yeah.
be ready to defend yourself
Aye.
because of your proximity to the border.
I did a lot of guard duty there.
Okay,
Yeah, a lot of guard duty.
okay. So I assume you didn't like guard duty.
It's okay, but it's, it's cold in the middle of the night. I can tell you that. It's awfully cold over there, so, yeah.
Were you lucky enough to have a shack, or did you end up outdoors all the time?
Sometimes I get in the shack, sometimes I have to walk around, but it's just, you have to deal with it. So, yeah.
And while you were in Germany, did you get any chances to enjoy German culture, or were you just too busy?
We went to see some other places. I can't remember what names they were. I think we went to Schweinfurt a long, long time ago. Yeah, it was okay.
Did you by chance enjoy German cuisine and/or beverages?
To a degree, I had some beer. I'm not sure what it was called, but yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So that was a Cold War experience. We're facing off against the Russians, roughly 30 miles from the border. Would that area technically be called Fulda Gap? Or
Pardon me?
was Schweinfurt technically Fulda Gap?
What is?
The Fulda Gap being where we thought most of the Russians would come pouring through if they attacked Germany?
I didn't think about that. That might be. I didn't think about that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
You're just doing your job, making sure you did what had to be done.
Yeah.
So you were there how long?
I was there 12 months and went back in December 1967. And Marcia and I were married December the 8th, 1967.
And this is based off of writing
Writing,
mail
yeah.
mostly.
Yeah. I asked her to marry me and she agreed to.
Nice. Nice.
I'm so thankful for her. I really am.
So you got married,
Yeah.
you packed her up, brought her to Germany.
Well, no, I went back home. And then
Right.
the last part of February 1968, she showed up. And then she went to Schweinfurt. I met her there at Frankfurt, took her back to Schweinfurt. We lived in the BOQ there. And 2 weeks later, I got orders to Vietnam. She had to go right back home.
So no good deed goes unpunished.
No.
You're married, you're legit, and the Army says, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
we get a vote too.
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. I'm sure you were both disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were. Yeah. I thought about taking my night off the list, but it'll happen again. I said, let's just get this thing done. So I didn't do that.
So she went back home where she came from.
And Golden.
And you deployed from Germany through the U.S. back to or out to Vietnam?
Yeah, well, I went back from Schweinfurt, back home for 45 days. And then I left from Denver, Colorado. I took a plane up to, Fort Lewis, Washington. I think that might be right. And we left up there.
Okay. And from Fort Lewis, Washington, did you go through Japan or did you go through another location to get to Vietnam?
I think we fueled up in Tokyo.
Okay. Outstanding. When you arrived in Vietnam, I'm sure there was a personnel replacement system in operation. And you processed through that. but let's talk about what were your implications when you walked through the door of the plane and got off the aircraft itself? Was it hot? Was it cold?
Oh, yeah, we got there in the afternoon. We stopped at Cameron Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And we got there, might have been maybe 2 or 3 days, something like that. And after that, they assigned me to go on to Panto. I think I stopped in Benoit.
Okay.
And then I got on a Chinook, went from there to Canto. And I got into Canto in the middle of the night. And that night, I had to do guard duty right away. My first time in Vietnam, guard duty. And I was 18 years old, and I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
I was all by myself, around planes and helicopters and everything. So, and I was scared, to be honest.
And your duties on guard were to
Just walk
protect the
around
equipment?
everything,
Look for people who looked like they didn't belong?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what were your orders? Were you told to shoot them, or were you
Yeah,
told
if that
to?
happened,
Okay.
get their attention. And that did not happen, but I was scared.
Sure, sure. When you're alone in a faraway country,
Yeah.
first time in a combat zone, all those things matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what did you actually end up doing in Vietnam? What was your assignment? Were you used as a wireman?
After I got to Canto, then we worked with this communication part of it. I was not part of that whole thing, but anyway, we worked with crypto, and I took a lot. I spent spent quite a bit of time on helicopters. So, and then after that, went on to SOC training after about 6 months, and the same thing. We took a convoy down there. I drove a Jeep pulling a trailer.
I'm going to go back and explore that helicopter thing just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you served on helicopters? You worked on helicopters?
No, I'm not a mechanic. No.
So you rode helicopters
I
a
did,
lot and
yeah.
supported a helicopter
And
organization.
I'm not a pilot.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now let's come back to then driving down country about 6 months later. You were running what kind of truck?
I was just driving a Jeep, pulling a trailer behind me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was
in the convoy. Yeah.
And was
I've got
that
some
wire
pictures.
equipment? Or
Excuse
was
me?
was that wire equipment or was that other
And the
communications?
trailer, I'm not sure what it was then, so I don't remember all that. So.
Okay. Outstanding. Well, tell us a little bit about what a typical day in Vietnam looked like for you.
Well, sometimes I got, unless I was on guard duty, that can certainly happen from time to time, but sometimes I kind of get up and get myself, get my clothes on and the boots on, and I have some dinner from time to time, and then I talk with somebody else and tell me what's going on, and I wrote my wife every single day in Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
Every single night, so, and I appreciate that, so,
Did you mail every day or did you mail them once a week?
every day.
Every day. That's something. Did you have sleep accommodations that were reasonable, or were you living underground under a piece of corrugated tin?
No, I slept on a bed
Nice,
with water, netting over me,
nice.
the wonderful mosquitoes.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. How was the food?
It's okay.
It was just food.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, were there any special qualifications that you required to serve in Vietnam? Did you have to get special clearances to work on the equipment or any other training?
Mhm.
Okay. And if you could, we have interest in a sad story, a courageous story, or a humorous story. Is there something like that you might be able to share with us?
I can remember we went on a patrol at some point in time, and I saw some of these punji steaks.
Uh-huh.
I got some pictures of that. And we walked down this one road, right next to the river, and watching what's going on. And I took some pictures of that, but.
Now, you mentioned going on patrol. Were you patrolling as infantry then?
Oh no, I was not the infantry. No, just
Right.
Yeah.
So you were doing other missions and activities with security patrolling, or what were? Tell us a little more about the mission.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 people with me, and I remember one point in time we stopped and I drank a coconut on the river right next to us. So I remember doing that. So,
But while you were doing that, were you checking on communications equipment or wiring and stuff? Or
No, I wasn't.
You were just out checking out the area,
yeah,
making sure things were good.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a good shot?
Oh, just average.
Just average. Somehow I understand. While you were there, did you learn anything about yourself? You mentioned you were scared that first night on guard duty, but as your tour progressed, did you gain confidence or grow in maturity? You know?
Well, I can remember our son was born when I was in Vietnam, December 27, 1968. I did not see him until April when I came back home in 1969.
Wow.
So I was looking forward to that. So that was the highlight for me. My son was born. So.
That's a challenging thing when you're away from home. Son is born, you don't get to see him, you don't get to hold him. And you're serving your country, doing good stuff for your country. But being isolated and remote can be a difficult thing.
I think I talked with my wife, Mars, maybe once or twice. You ever heard of Mars?
I have heard of Mars, but if you would tell us a little bit about it,
Oh, I just got in
because
touch
the people who are going to hear this don't know what Mars is.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, I just got in touch with people, and he says, yeah, we can call her. And I think I called her, I think it was nighttime for me and daytime for her. And she answered, and I said, well, I says, how are you? Over. Well, I'm fine. Over. And ask her how the baby's doing, everything, and yeah. So.
but you were speaking on a telephone that goes to a radio. That radio skips or bounces a signal all the way around the world. It arrives at a radio there and then is translated into a phone line there. And then the reverse,
Yeah.
which is why you were using the verbiage that you mentioned, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that actually was an effort, part military, lots of amateur radio operator capability,
I see.
mostly volunteers who helped empower that. We can actually talk around the planet now with satellite communications, but your experience was more challenging because of that long pause that had to occur
Yeah.
for the time of signal to move. So, yeah, Mars is very impressive, and I'm glad you were able to make a couple of calls.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And so you made a couple of calls. One, I'm sure, was related to your son being born. What were the other occasions?
I think maybe several months later, I suppose I'm coming home in April. So,
I bet that was a wonderful call for her.
yeah. I think that last week or two, I'm just kind of worried about being on a helicopter and what's going on. And, I'm hope they'll go back home. So who knows?
Nice. I'm glad you brought up Mars because that's a little-known story of Cold War and Vietnam and even Korea history. But the real thing with Mars is the volunteer aspect of it, that volunteers were supporting service members so they could contact family members for important things, which is wonderful. What did you do for recreation when you were in Vietnam? I'm sure sometimes you had to find distractions.
Oh, sometimes. Well, while I was over there, we used marijuana. That's bad for me, but I was involved in all that. So, I think when I came back home in 1969, I quit maybe about 72, 73, something like that.
So you mentioned you came back home. How long was it between coming back home and discharge? Or did you discharge upon departing Vietnam?
When I left Oakland, California, they discharged me.
So within a few
April
days.
the 18th, 1969.
Well, we're going to ask you to talk to us about how you left Vietnam and worked through Oakland.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I remember I probably left sock training maybe about the 15th or the 16th or something like that I went back to Benoit, and I checked back in, and then wait, the airplane is leaving. So
There was a processing, procedure that you followed. Did that include drug testing?
no, not for
Okay.
me.
And did you have any, they did your end of service paperwork
Yeah.
preparation there. You actually executed in Oakland, but
Yeah.
they did your preparation in,
Yeah.
okay,
Where did they do that?
Excuse me.
Where did they do your prep?
the
In
processing.
California.
In Oakland?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So you got to Oakland. When you got off your aircraft at Oakland and you were on your way to processing, what was your experience like returning from Vietnam?
Well, I think a lot of people, when you get off the plane, people are not appreciative of you. I spent 10 hours in the San Francisco airport to get my phone, and people were not very kind to me, obviously. So.
And they didn't have a location where you could be separated from everyone? You just kind of sat around and
Yeah,
took the abuse?
yeah.
And I am sorry for that.
Yeah.
I am sorry for that. So while you were processing to leave service, they were making arrangements for your flight home, or did you end up doing that yourself?
I took it by myself then, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
I just called the airport and said, I'm going back to Denver, and he says, well, that's the day you'll have to leave. And I said, that'd be fine. So I said, I'll be here. So
Okay. And is that where she was?
she met me at the airport in Denver.
Okay.
And my son.
Outstanding. And that was the first time you'd seen your son?
Yeah.
I bet that's what sustained you on your journey from Oakland to Denver. You were looking forward to seeing your son.
And I was 56 years old, and I appreciate him. I love the three kids just as well. So
Right?
I really do. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, tell us about arrival, seeing your wife, how your wife felt, how you felt.
well, I just got off the plane. I wasn't first in line, first coming out, but I mean, she could see me, and I could certainly see her, and I just gave her a big hug, and her son, and we kissed, and just nice to see you again, my love. So,
You remember what she was wearing? Some guys tell me they do, some don't. I just thought I'd ask.
I don't remember all that. So
That's nice. That's nice. So, I'm going to ask you a few questions that go beyond just doing your time. You mentioned that you joined the Army for a variety of reasons. After having served elsewhere in the world, 2 different locations, kind of different jobs, one in a combat zone. What are your feelings about your goals in life at the time you signed up for or entered the Army, and your outcome coming out of the combat zone after your tour?
well, I was a little discouraged. People were against the war, and I can't remember this one. What his name was? Might have been. He was in the Army, and he was against the whole thing. I think he might be a senator, but I don't appreciate him at all. I can't remember his name. He used to be in the senator, and now he's out doing something else. But the things that he took, I'm not appreciative of any of that against the war. We need to serve our war. It's to serve our country. So I did not appreciate that. So,
I can understand that, and I think it's important to share that with folks for the future. You yourself felt like you had served your country, honored your duty, and I don't know, maybe did what you set out to do. You went out to become something. Did you become something? You feel like you arrived?
when I came home, then I worked for the Coors Porcelain Company from 1969 to 1971. I was an engineering inspector, and I went out to our car and after dinner time read her Bible. I was reading some ads in the Denver Post, and I was not a Christian at that point in time. But anyway, this gentleman from Juanita was looking for a hired man, I said, well, I thought I'd like to learn farming and ranching. So I talked to Marsh about that. We called him. He said, why don't you come out here for an interview? We went out there and he hired me.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been wanting it ever since 1971.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Now, did your military experience have anything to do with your strength of character and purpose and help you to do that job and learn that job?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It's outstanding.
Yeah, it did.
It's outstanding. Now, I can tell that you worked with some people having strong feelings on either side of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any personal feelings you'd like to share with us about that experience?
Well, if you have a person right now who's overseas or even in the country, you can pray for these people every single day.
Amen.
In terms of the friends that they make with. Some of these friends might be good, some might be bad. You have to be awfully careful. I mean, that's my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the people I met in Germany, they drank a lot of alcohol, and so did I, some beer. But I think it took me in the wrong direction at that point in time. I don't need to do something like that. But again, I was 18 years old. You know, I'm pretty young, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've learned quite a bit out of that.
Would you recommend military service for young people?
If they would like to. I mean, I think if the Lord leads you to follow in that direction, I would go. I would. I'd go to Him, Jesus Christ.
So even though you may have gone one way early, you feel that that overall experience gives you opportunity to be led to something better.
Oh yeah,
Right?
It did. Yeah,
And I believe that too.
yeah, it did.
It's wonderful.
It was quite a change for Marsh and I to leave Arvada, Colorado, to move to Nebraska.
Mhm.
Quite a change for us. Quite a change for us. But it's the best decision we've ever made.
And you made that decision because you got strength while you were in the military, right? I mean,
Well, I think part of it.
you develop character
Mhm.
over time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Good on you. Have you told this story to your family? Are your children aware?
Oh yeah, they know the whole thing.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, yeah.
That's outstanding. Have any of your children served?
No,
Okay.
no.
How many children do you have?
We have 4. Dan, Lori, Cindy, and Amy. Excuse me. Dan, Lori, Cindy, and Amy. Yeah, yeah.
4, 2 and 2.
No, 3 and 2. My son, Dan, Lori, Cindy, and Amy. Three daughters and 1 son.
That's wonderful. If you were going to give a message to the future, if you were looking to talk to future generations about military service, the experience, the duty, the loyalty, those things, what message would you give the next generation?
I would get in contact, might be their parents or another brother or sister, somebody have a good relationship with them, and ask them, this has come up for me. What's your thinking about that? And get their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would, yeah. And then certainly pray about it. So,
I think that's awesome. I really do. I'd like to give you an opportunity, if you can think of some service anecdotes, short little stories, anything you'd like to share, and just say, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
well, not about the service. Can I tell something about the farm?
Sure.
Yeah. I worked for Wesley Wheeler and Margie Wheeler in 1972,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not a Christian, but he was. And I never had parents, obviously. And he was a godly man. And we prayed about everything, farming, ranching. And I learned so much from him and his wife. And he has passed away, but his wife is still, she's still Well, she's 98 years old, and Marcia helps her every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And it must have been maybe March the 13th, 1973, Marcia went to a missionary meeting. And that evening she was saved.
Mm-hmm.
And she came back and told me about the same thing. So then I talked with Wesley the next day, and I said, you know, my wife was saved last night, and I'd like to know more about that. So he invited this other missionary meeting, missionary pastor, and we met him at Wesley's place, March 14th, 1973, at 1:30 in the afternoon. And I listened to the pastor, and I was also saved that afternoon. And I'm more than thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
More than thankful for that. And I think the reason we came here was the Holy Spirit led us to come to Nebraska for that one reason. That's the whole thing about it. And I am so thankful for that, and all the glory goes to Jesus Christ.
Excuse me.
For us to raise our kids, and they all graduated from one year. I'm glad for that. And they all love Jesus Christ, and I'm happy for that as well. Now we have 13 grandkids. We have 7 great-grandkids. It just amazes Marcia and I. That's the asset I see out of the whole thing, that we follow Jesus Christ. So, and again, all the glory goes to Him and Him alone.
I appreciate the conviction and the testimony. Mm-hmm. It's important, I think, for us to recognize where we come from, mm-hmm. so that we can be where we need to be, mm-hmm. and accept what is intended for us.
Yeah.
So I do want to thank you very much for sharing that. I
mm-hmm.
think that conviction is important.
Mm-hmm.
And we discover that through experience,
mm-hmm.
and when we are ready,
mm-hmm.
the Spirit moves.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. I do
The
appreciate
way
it.
I was raised, Marcia, she never saw her parents.
Mm-hmm.
So they passed away before she was even born. So she never met them. So.
That's amazing.
We're going to see them in heaven at some point in time.
That's amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No.
Then I'm going to go ahead and close this. But
okay.
Again, I'd like to say, on behalf of the Nebraska Vietnam Veterans Memorial Foundation, the Library of Congress Tell Your Story program, and Bellevue University, I want to thank you for your time, your service, your sacrifice, your openness and your honesty, sharing so much with us today. Thank you for that generosity, and thank you for that gift.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So.
Okay.